Right, so here is the best way to build with AI. So I'm going to show you my process. I use Codex and I use Claude Code. Now you can do this just in Claude Code, you can do this just in Codex. The reason I'm showing you both is because I want to show you how you can use Fable 5. So what I've got here is I've got Cursor installed. Now I don't pay for Cursor, I just use the IDE. Inside here, I have video search. This is just some temporary project that I'm working on just for demonstration purposes, right? I've got the folder open and I also have it open inside Codex. Now, what I like to do is I like to use Codex to help me mock up UI designs, just so I can start to see how am I actually going to use the app and how would the app actually work in terms of user experience. And then what I use is I use CodeSpring to store all of that information and then create it into tasks that I can then get the AI to then go ahead and build for. Now, we also have this system here, which is essentially our company knowledge base. And I'll talk a little bit about this towards the end, because this really does add a superpower to building with AI. All of this, by the way, is included inside a CodeSpring subscription. So first thing I do is I come into Codex and I just have this long chat. And I have this long chat to try and figure out how and what I want my app to do. It literally is just enormous. I'm not going to scroll through the entire thing, but you can see here, all I'm doing is I'm saying, look, this is the app that I'm trying to build. Here's what I want the app to do. Here's the user journey. And I get a lot of questions that, like, people say to me, look, if you're trying to build an app, how do I know how much to build? How do I know where to get started? What I usually say is, think of it from the problem you're trying to solve. Okay, so let's just take CodeSpring, for example. The problem we're trying to solve is confusion while building with AI. It's making it easy for you to build with AI and get the AI to build exactly what you want without it just making stuff up, right? So we have one feature that can do that, which is this full planner here. So you can visually see how it works, and then you can connect it to any AI tool to build from it, okay? That is one feature. Now we also have Kanban tasks, so we can actually convert those into step-by-step tasks that the AI can build from. Okay, we also have integrations, right, which allows you to connect any documentation to it as well. So it's got its own AI chat inside here, so you can actually talk to the chatbot in here, but you can also talk to it directly through Codex, right? These are all other features, but in order to achieve your goal, which is obviously, making it easier to see what the AI is building and plan it out properly first, like I can see here all of the different features and the sub features and how all of my app works. I'll talk through this in a little bit more detail in a minute. The only feature that really needs building for the first version to launch is obviously the mind map, right? And the connection, the AI connection thing, so it can actually update and read the mind map, okay? So my point is, you wouldn't go ahead and build scouts. You wouldn't build sharing. So I can go ahead, I can build a mind map. I can build an app, for example, and I can share this with you. So you can go ahead and continue building in your CodeSpring account. I wouldn't build integrations, right? I wouldn't build the feature request section. I wouldn't build all of these bells and whistles. I wouldn't go ahead and build organizations so I can invite team members. I certainly wouldn't build like side products like this that go ahead and make it more powerful. So the point is, you have to decide, first of all, what exactly is it that you're building to start off with. And people overcomplicate it. They say, I'm not sure which one's the best version for me to build. And really the answer is, it's just what is the minimum amount that you can build that would mean the app actually works. And actually, more often than not, you're much better off building a software that is very, very simple, that solves one little tiny problem, than building an app that has loads of features, right? CodeSpring is an incredibly complicated app to build. We've been building it for over a year. And actually, it would be much easier just to build a little app, maybe like a Whisperflow transcription tool, for example. And the only thing that needs to do is obviously transcribe the text. So anyway, that's a bit of a side quest there. But my point is, you talk back and forth with the AI and you just kind of say, this is what I'm trying to build. And what happens here is a beautiful thing, because it means you start to think through the process of building. You start to think, okay, I want the button to be here, and when I click this, I want to be able to see this information, okay? And this here is just like, you see, I can't, like, half this stuff I can't click, okay? All this is a UI mockup. It's just a Next.js landing page, a web page, and you can just ask it to create a mockup. This allows me to see, how do I want things laid out? What are the basic core features I'm going to have inside this app, okay? Because once I have this UI mocked up, and we are building this as a feature into CodeSpring at some point, to be fair, so you'll be able to do it all inside CodeSpring. Once I have it mocked up and designed, I can then start to think about the user journey. So I can say, okay, when a user clicks on search and they search for something, what do they actually see? Okay, when they click around, what do they see? Are they able to do it? If I come to indexing, or if I come to settings, what stuff do I actually need to see? And what you'll notice is, as you do this, the AI will add stuff to settings and accounts that you don't actually need, for example, right? So for example, I don't know, maybe I don't necessarily need these different models in settings. So I could actually say, actually remove these models. And then what I do as I'm going through is I tell it to add these features into CodeSpring. So here we have an app with search feature, file browser, indexing, queue, stats, and settings. Okay. Inside here we have usage stats, we have settings, we have queue, we have indexing, file browser, we have an onboarding, and we also have backend architecture and then search. Okay. So these are the core features of my app. Okay, and you can see here, like search, if I come to, well, let's look at settings, right? Small MVP settings surface for account license, model packs, indexing performance, right? So it's just a couple of these. And all I do is I've got this connected to Codex. So I just click on connect. And you can do this all through Claude Code. You could do this through Cursor. You could do this through Lovable, although I wouldn't recommend it. This connects with any agent you want to use. So I have my plan in here. And as I've sort of settled on something, I say, okay, I've just worked on the settings feature. I know how I want the settings feature to work. There's a bit of context in here. The problem that you're going to have is if you start building, all of, as you'll probably know, right, all of this context, right, is going to disappear. There's so much information here which is just going to go missing. So as I'm building, I say, okay, settings, can you just store that inside CodeSpring? And then what I do is I say, well, settings is going to have additional features. So if I open up settings, right, I have account, I have general, models, indexing, search, updates, and there's loads of other bits and pieces in here. So then I've added in sub features, right? So model management, right? So for example, I come into models, I can change the different models. CPU limit, which is going to be under indexing, CPU limit, right? Updates, for example, is updates feature. So these are sub features that go into the feature. And all I'm doing is, as I'm building, I'm just saying, can you just store the context as to why I'm building these things and where they are. Okay, so I know now, if I just zoom out, right, this is obviously the entire map of the app that I'm building, but I know if I go to settings, I have the feature for settings, which is here. And I also know if I go settings, I have the sub-features that are contained within it. And I can read notes on how they work. So analytics and diagnostics, optional privacy, conscious usage analytics, and crash error diagnostics, right? License and account. And I've just told the AI what I want it to do, and then Codex has just mapped it into here. Now, what's wonderful about this is, as you're building with AI inside Codex, you can see we've got so many different chats. It's so easy to lose chats and conversations, whereas in CodeSpring, all I need to do is here, I've got all of the different projects that I'm working on, and I can just click on it and it's like, cool, job done. I have all the information that I need, okay? Then what I do is I take notes and I add notes and I just say to it, okay, can you just add some notes on how these things are going to work? And this is just the planning phase, okay? Then what I do is I start to think about how does the back-end functionality of this work? So for example, now we kind of know the layout and the structure and the kind of features that we need. Now we need to start thinking about how does the back-end actually work? But because I've got the UI in front of me, I can start to go around and say, okay, this is the search feature. When somebody searches for something, I need to click this. What's going to happen when I search? What do I see? Where do I read the database, for example? Do I need language models? So what I can do is I can come into here and I can look at search, for example, and I can store that information in here. So search is going to have a results view, which would be this thing here. And I can describe what the results view is. So after searching, show the file name first results, right? With thumbnail, timestamp, score, path, source data, right? What's in here doesn't matter too much. But the point is, this is an explanation how this would work. Now, what I can actually do is I could do this, right? Results. I could add a bridge, and then to this I could add, I don't know, more notes, for example, on how I want that to work. You know, what I could also do is I could add, I don't know, a mood board to this, right? Auto layout. And I could remember, okay, this is the results view that I want to have in my app. So I could take a screenshot of this, and I could just drop that in there. So now I've stored a mood board of how I want like that feature to actually look like. And all I'm doing is I'm just keeping track of everything, but it means I can now zoom in and out and I can say, okay, well, I haven't actually added that much context on how this feature is going to work now, right? Selected file panel, which would be this thing here. So I could do this, I could right click, I could add bridge, and I could do selected file panel. And I could add a bridge to this, right? And I then come into this and I click on plus, mood board, for example. We've got so many cool features coming out soon. And then you just click on file browser like this, right? And then I just paste that in there. And the point is I'm gradually building up, and I'm just going to save this. I'm gradually building up context on what I'm creating, okay? Now comes the really fun part, because I'm starting to think about how does the back end of my app actually work. Now, this is the tricky part, because this is where most people fall apart, because you're not a technical person, right? I myself, I wouldn't class myself as technical. I'm a lot more technical than most of you, simply because I've built this software company. We do hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. And when I first started, I hadn't a clue what I was doing. And what I was building at the start was really, really bad. It was buggy. It broke all the time. And now what we build works most of the time. We don't get that many errors and problems, right? So my point is, you have to remember where you are in your process, right? You are a beginner, okay? You are getting started. You're not going to be able to build the most powerful application in the world, okay? But what you can do is you can get the AI to ask you questions. Now, inside CodeSpring, right, I'll see if I can find an example. If I come into the ideas browser here, I was actually talking to it, and I can give it examples, and it can interview me and ask me questions, and it will figure out the tech stack for me. But actually what I like to do is mostly use CodeSpring as a storage layer. And I like to use, where are we working on? Yeah, this one here. What I like to use is Codex, and I will just tell it to go ahead and tell me what does it think the back end is going to be. So it says, okay, well, this is a Mac app, so it's going to be Swift. And then I say, give me the pros and cons of each of these things. So when I click search, what do I think is going to happen? I describe the user journey of what happens when I click search and I search something, and then it tells me, here's how I reckon we should build the back end. And I say, okay, can you now cross-reference that? Because I want to focus on building something that works. If I have 10,000 users, it has to be highly scalable. I want it to be quick. I want it to be snappy. I want it to be efficient. And then I say, okay, but what about all of these edge cases? And I just list out all of the edge cases, right? And I'll give you an example of what that looks like. So here, this is me just saying, like, all of the edge cases. Look at all the question marks. Edge case here. I'm saying, what happens if this? So if I do this, what happens if this happens, right? And I'm just saying, okay, how does it do that? What do we need to do? What's the most efficient way of doing that? What I want you to do now is all of this stuff, and then what I do is I say, store all of this stuff inside CodeSpring. So if I come into CodeSpring and I do backend architecture, I say, create me a backend architecture feature. And you need to understand how to use CodeSpring a little bit here. So I just say, create me inside CodeSpring a feature called backend architecture. And then I can come to backend architecture, and here we go. It's just started to write down some stuff, right? Diagnostics and privacy, performance and scheduling, permissions and source access, job queue and recovery, right? Hybrid ranking rules. It's added loads of stuff, query engine. These are all the different bits and pieces that I have said, like, we've had this conversation here and it's told me how to figure out the back end, and it said, okay, let's just add all of these things in here, okay? And that's just because I want to have them in one place. Now, sometimes, you know, there will be features that will share the back end, and it doesn't matter too much. Like, it doesn't need to be perfect, but the point is, I am storing in here. I can come in and I can see, okay, well, a local database schema. I can actually do this, add a bridge, right? And this is where it gets really exciting. Schema, add a bridge, and I can now generate a product requirement doc. So I can get ready to start building. So I can say, tell you what, let's create a database design requirement doc, okay? So now what CodeSpring is going to do is it's going to look at, okay, here is the entire code. Here's the entire app that we're trying to build, right? I have all the context on what we're trying to build, and I'm going to read all of the sub-features in here in the back-end architecture. I'm going to read the entire context of everything, but it's going to look specifically at these are the sub-features, these are the notes on how I want it to work, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a full database design product requirement doc. So I'll come back once this is done, right? And then what I also like to do is I like to use, this is our security reviewer. Okay, so you actually have access to this with the CodeSpring subscription. You have to be on the Pro plan, which is, I think, £49 a month. You get the full security reviewer. So what happens here, if I come into CodeSpring, right, you can turn on this PR review thing, and it will basically mean now whenever the AI is building something, it will do a full security audit and make sure that you're not shipping bugs, and it will check everything. And also what this thing does, this has like a lot more context. So this is a video tool. A lot more context on how the code works and anything else that we're thinking about. It's a much better memory. It's a memory system for AI, basically. But you can also give it your code as well, so it knows where everything is and why everything is written in the way it is written. So here you go, created me the database design. So now what's going to happen is I have a full plan of my app, right? And you don't necessarily need to create a requirement doc for everything, right? So I could also come into here and I could say, I have, I don't know, what other features have we got? We've got onboarding, right? I could, if I wanted to, generate a requirement doc for my onboarding, and I could say generate a front-end requirement doc. And in fact, actually, if I did it for these ones here, I could generate a requirement doc for each of these, front-end requirement doc here. And what this would do is it would say, okay, let's look at, this is the feature that we're trying to build. It would look at the image, and then it would generate an actual requirement doc for that thing. So now when I connect it to Claude Code, right, and I come into Claude Code to build it, I'm going to use Fable 5 to build, because Fable 5 is the most powerful model out there. But Fable 5 is going to do a much better job of figuring out any edge cases. It's going to do a much better job of building. But now what's happening is it's not just building from one little prompt. Okay, it's understanding exactly how to build your app properly, right? Because what's happened is I have gone through and I've actually broken down exactly what it is I'm trying to build, and then from there I have created a full plan, and I just had time to think through exactly how it's going to work. And what CodeSpring allows you to do really is just visualize how everything goes together. I'm just going to go ahead and delete this because I don't actually need that, right? But it gives me the opportunity to visualize how everything is going together, and it gives me an opportunity to think through everything, because 99% of the time AI can build you 90% of what you want to build, but the reason it makes mistakes and the reason it breaks is because it's making up stuff. Okay, if I haven't explained this much detail on how I want my app to work, the AI is going to fill in the gaps and make things up. So anyway, I hope this video was useful for you. If you would like to grab access to CodeSpring, all you need to do is come to codespring.app. The website's a bit crappy. I need to update the website. Go ahead and create an account for CodeSpring. We have various different plans. I recommend you join the Pro plan. It's £49 a month. You get 10,000 credits. You can create 30 different projects. You get agent connections, so you can actually integrate it into any agent. You can integrate any code base for it. You can create all the Kanban tasks. You get priority support. We do monthly calls, so we train everybody on how to use the software. And yeah, loads of cool stuff that we do. So, and also inside the app, in the Pro plan, you can book in a call with me, so you can see if it's worth, if you want to get involved with coaching, we can coach you on stuff as well. We have a full coaching program to help you on all of that stuff. So hopefully this video was useful for you. That's just sort of how I build, and I'll do some more videos later on from Instagram on how I actually then start to actually start to build, and I'll give you some examples on how that works as well. Peace out, guys. Thank you for watching this content, and make sure you go ahead and grab yourself a CodeSpring subscription.